Hello, I'm Laura Pizzorno. I'm the author of Your Bones, and I'm here today to share some information with you from the breaking research that's relevant for bone health that I hope will help you to have healthier bones. Today I'd like to talk with you about VAT, V-A-T. It stands for visceral adipose tissue, and it is negatively associated with bone mineral density and our ability to maintain our muscle mass. You know, it's almost spring, and soon all those bulky, heavy, belly camouflaging clothing are going to be put away, and it's definitely time for us to get it in gear and lose that extra belly fat that is so unhelpful for our bones. If you could use a little science-based inspiration to help you navigate unscathed past the chip, cookie, and candy aisles in your grocery store, a study just published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in this February issue shows that VAT, or visceral adipose tissue, lowers your bone mineral density and causes your muscles to shrink. So, you know, we used to think that high body mass, in other words, being overweight, put more stress on bone, and thus it caused bone to become stronger. But now we know it ain't so. Why? Well, too much belly fat, or VAT, drives fat to accumulate in tissues where fat is not supposed to be found. This is an unhealthy condition, and it's called ectopic adiposity. And ectopic adiposity is strongly associated with metabolic diseases, such as the insulin resistance that leads to and is seen in type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. When fat infiltrates skeletal muscle, the latest research shows that this very harmfully impacts bone as well. Ectopic adipose tissue can be depositing in your bones long before you'd meet the criterion for obesity or even be considered at clinical risk for fatty liver or type 2 diabetes or bone loss. What happens? Well, the unhappy belly fat releases pro-inflammatory adipocyte-derived, in other words, fat-produced hormones and cytokines, and these are signaling molecules that provoke inflammation, and that in turn provokes osteoclasts to remove bone. The most recent paper that was published this month, February 2015, discusses the results of a study that was conducted at the University of Michigan Health System, and it involved 7,203 patients. 46% of them were women and 53% were men. Study participants ranged in age from 18 to 64.9 years, and CT scans were taken of each of these participants every year from 1995 to 2013. Then they looked at the results, and they used them to evaluate fat filtration into muscle, specifically into the psoas muscle as a marker and indicator, and the relationship between ectopic fat and bone mineral density in both cortical and trabecular bone. And you may remember trabecular bone is the kind of interior spongy bone that's inside your bones, and the cortical bone is more like the hard outer shell. Different types of bone have more cortical bone than other types. So the primary finding was that VAT, or belly fat, is strongly and inversely associated with bone mineral density in the spine, both vertebral, trabecular, and cortical bone mineral densities, and also with muscle shrinkage in adults, even after we make adjustments for body mass index and age. These findings are really important because being overweight has so often been said to be a protective factor for bone health and muscle strength, because greater demands are placed on muscle and bone from just having to lift and maneuver a heavy body. But now we know that having a higher BMI means carrying more belly fat. And visceral adipose tissue, or belly fat, is considered to be the underlying driver that links obesity and overweight to cardiometabolic chronic diseases like fatty liver, insulin resistance, high blood pressure, and diabetes. And now we're going to add osteopenia and osteoporosis to that list. Obesity and being sedentary, especially in older adults, greatly increases weakness and sarcopenia, which means muscle wasting. A big belly makes it worse, but you can even be thin and still have sarcopenia if you're sedentary and don't use your muscles. It's really important to do regular weight-bearing exercise and resistance exercise. Weak muscles increase your risk for falling, and a fall greatly increases your risk for fracture. And men, you are not exempt here, okay? Even young and middle-aged men tend to have a larger proportion of VAT or belly fat to their total amount of body fat than women do. We ladies tend to carry our fat on our hips and thighs, the proverbial pear shape, in contrast to the apple shape, which is seen more in men. And this propensity of having greater VAT may put men at earlier risk of what is called diminished spinal musculoskeletal quality. In other words, fatty muscles and bone loss. There was another study that was published in March of last year, March 2014, that confirms this. BMI and body fat were tracked in more than 2,000 men over a 5-year period. Increases in body mass index and body fat coincided very neatly with decreases in both muscle and bone mass. Average fat mass increased by 9%, average bone mass decreased by 1.6% in men, okay? And this unhappy effect occurred when the average percent of fat in these men had only increased a little, from 23.4% to 25.2%. Lean body mass decreased more than 2%, and bone mass decreased from 4 to 3%. Many of these men were young. Okay, the age stratification at baseline ensured that there were approximately 100 men for each 5-year age group, and they started at age 20. So the age groups ran 20 to 24, 25 to 29, 30 to 34, 35 to 39, 40 to 44, 45 to 49, 50 to 54, 55 to 59, 60 to 64, and 65 to 69 years. And they had approximately 200 men for each of the age groups. Okay. They also had men who were 70 to 79 and 80 years and older. So this was not just an effect that was seen only in the older men. So what's the takeaway here? You know, now 35% of adults in the United States are considered obese, but even being overweight is going to increase your risk of bone loss if you're carrying that weight on your belly. So please, try to give your bones and the rest of your body the care that you really deserve. Okay, make it a priority to get some regular aerobic and resistance exercise and eat the bone-building diet that I lay out in detail in Your Bones, and ensure that your bones are getting the nutrients they need, the key nutrients. These will be supplied for you by Algacal Plus. In the next couple of videos, I'm going to share with you the latest research that also shows how calcium, and Algacal Plus supplies 4 different kinds of plant-derived calcium for you. Calcium helps us burn more fat, and it helps us excrete more fat, and it helps us lose more fat, a lot more fat, if we restrict our calories a little bit. And it also helps us not feel hungry while we're doing it. So this research was really inspiring to me. I hope you'll tune in and that it will inspire you as well. Thanks for joining me today. So I can shut this off now.